Conjunction, junction, what's your function? Conjunction, junction, and we begin again. Just as we began Shemot with this little Schoolhouse Rock snippet, as the book of Shemot begins with the conjunction the, meaning and, the third book also begins the, meaning and, this time starting Vayikra. Vayikra means and he called, meaning God is calling us to a holy existence. Again, even though we are starting a new book, starting with the and shows us a continuity with that which preceded it. Even with Vayikra being that much of a different book than Shemot, it is not really a separate book. It is still part of the same smoothly scrolling book, Sefer Torah. The Torah, the Sefer Torah, can be seen as being both a history book and a law book. It is the history of our people. From the beginning of Bereshit, with the creation of the world, with the first word, Bereshit, in the beginning, to the end of Devarim, with us finally being able to re-enter our promised land, Yisrael, with the last word being Yisrael, Israel. The Torah is, thus to us, very much a history book of sorts. It is also, though, very much a law book, as it provides us the laws, 613 of them, of how to live lives of good. The Torah, though, while we refer to it as a book, the Sefer Torah is actually considered also to be composed of 5 books, the 5 books of Moses. Thus, the Torah is also, particularly in book form like this, called the Chumash, Hebrew, for 5. And some call it the Pentateuch, Greek, for 5 books. As you will recall from last Shabbat, we just completed reading the second of these 5 books. For the 2 books we have read thus far this year, Bereshit and Shemot, were primarily history books. Bereshit took us from the foundation of history, from creation, all the way up to Yosef and our being in Egypt. And Shemot took us from the foundation of Moshe in Egypt to the foundation of the building of the Mishkan in the desert. The third of the 5 books that we are beginning reading this Shabbat, though, with the portion of Vayikra, in the book of Vayikra, is primarily a law book. Vayikra, some call Leviticus, which is Greek for pertaining to the Levites. It is also often referred to as Torah Kohanim, as it especially includes instructions for the Levites, and particularly for the subset of the Kohanim. The Kohanim are to be the religious leaders, and to so lead us to a holier existence. Aaron was the first of the Kohanim, and his sons the next generation of Kohanim, and so forth. And Aaron was the son of Amram, who was the son of Kohath, who was the son of Levi, from whom all Levites, and through Aaron, all Kohanim, then descend. And as a great, and many more great-grandson of Aaron, the first of the Kohanim, I am here to strive to continue forward this great tradition and teachings. Vayikra means, and he called, meaning God is calling us to a holy existence, to a holy life. And I do thus try to live as such as best I can. And I am here to help others to so learn and live as such. Vayikra instructs us. Kedoshim tiyeh, ki kadosh ani Adonai Elohechem. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. The focus of Vayikra is that we are to strive to be holy, to be more good, to do more good, and to do our part and bring more good into this world. There are quite a wide array of rules and more provided in Vayikra, but what it all has in common is the theme of holiness. How to be more holy, to be more pure, to be more good. We are to remain faithful to God and to our covenant with God. And thus we are provided Vayikra to better teach us how to better live. Often considered by many a struggle with which to connect and to comprehend. This first chapter of Vayikra and more to come talk a lot about sacrifice. But sacrifice need not be about animals, and even more ideally so, is not. It should be noted that passage after passage of this reading about sacrifice begins with the word im, meaning if. If we are going to sacrifice animals, as was so the way of the world then at least we need to rein it in with rules and restrictions and boundaries on it. But that is just if we are going to do so. Passage after passage here starts with im, meaning if. There is indeed quite a difference between that which we are commanded that we must do, and that which, if we are to do, then we are to do it in a certain way. We are not commanded to sacrifice animals, but we are commanded to protect animals. Zecher Tzadik Livrachim, Rav Kook, chief rabbi of Jerusalem, oft spoke about our evolving beyond the ways of such sacrifice of the past. And he so liked to quote from Isaiah. Lo yareu v'lo yashchitu bechol har kadeshi. None shall hurt, or none shall destroy in all my holy mountain. The boundaries of Vayikra can be seen as a way to wean us away from the less than desirable, less than acceptable ways of the world around us. The concept of sacrifice is to evolve better with us. Ultimately, we brought in tefillot, prayers. We are to sacrifice our time and to focus ourselves better. We did, though, then live in a world where all other cultures around us were based on sacrificial worship. And our ancestors who still had such a slave's mentality, such a follower's mentality, were not yet ready to conceive of a religion without sacrifice. Especially after the situation of the golden calf. God realized how weak we were and how he needed to bring us along smaller steps along the way. Ultimately, though, we were to and we did move beyond animal sacrifice and to realize there were other ways we could sacrifice. Sacrifice then and now has always been supposed to be about each of us giving up something ourselves that is not easy to give up. Giving up something that means something to us. Think about it. Giving up something that is easy to give up is thus not really a sacrifice. True sacrificing has to have value to us. True sacrificing needs to mean something to us. Back then, our flocks of animals meant so much to us. But today, what means so much to us? Perhaps time, perhaps money or other resources, perhaps our work efforts. Thus, today, our sacrifice should be about giving of our time, giving of our resources, and even giving of our work, our skills for the benefit of others. Even the word mincha, which means offering, has well evolved from an offering of animals to an offering of our time to devotion to God. We are today to be giving our time to prayer and Torah study, giving our resources to help others. giving of ourselves to live holier lives despite our possible desires and temptations otherwise. It is also important to note that the Hebrew word used for sacrifice here is korban, which comes from the Hebrew root, kuf, resh, vet, meaning to bring close. And thus the purpose of our sacrificing should be to bring us closer to God and to that which is good. Furthermore, even the Hebrew word for a burnt offering used is olah, which comes from the Hebrew root ayin lamed he, which means to ascend. And thus it is to elevate our souls. And how poignant it is to note that whatever it is that we have to sacrifice actually came from God in the first place. And it is all just on loan to us. In a way, thus, sacrificing is an affirmation of faith. When we sacrifice that which we do have, we are showing our faith that we know that more blessings will come our way. Our sacrifices have never actually been about giving to God. God does not need things from us. Our sacrifices, though, are about us and about helping us connect better to something beyond us. Life does and should involve sacrifice. And as we enter this Shabbat of Vayikra, I encourage each of us to think about, do we have the faith to be willing to sacrifice? And what are we willing to sacrifice that actually means something to us to sacrifice and give up? Having faith that more will come our way. We are blessed, and we must appreciate our blessings and give thanks for our blessings and realize that our blessings come from God. I will leave you with that to ponder as I wish you Shabbat Shalom.